Sounds good.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Unfiltered Vet Discussions. We're happy to see you or have you listen to us today. My name is Kelly, and I'm being joined by Beth and Jenny and David. You can find us at unfilteredvetdiscussions.com. And from there, you can leap to all our social media platforms like TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, as well as different podcasts, you know, platforms like Google. Google doesn't float your boat, go to Apple. If Apple doesn't float your boat, go to Spotify. There's something for everybody there, right? And today's topic is something paranormal because if you're new to listening to Unfiltered Vet Discussions, we are unfiltered. We do not edit. And we also just pick the topic right before we hit the record button. So today's conversation that we all started just kind of chitty-chatting about was what does your staff really think about you? And how do you figure that out? And Jenny was the one to say, hey guys, I did this thing. And so, Jenny, what's the thing that you did?
So the thing that I did was an employee net promoter score survey. So the idea of an employee net promoter score is that I'm reading literally off of Google right now.
Mhm.
It's a metric used to gauge employee engagement and loyalty by asking employees how likely they are to recommend their company as a good place to work. Now, I did this through Dr. Dave Nickel because I was at VMX. I go to a lot of his strategic leadership talks, and Dr. Weinstein has said this many times. If you're not doing this survey quarterly, you are doing basically your team and yourself as a leader a disservice. And so, but there's always a caveat that you better have thick skin if you're going to do it because it is anonymous. So I don't know who said what. And and then you get the results back. And one of the scores, so the way that they did it was I did it through, like I said, Dr. Nichols' organization, and Oliver is my person who's going to go through this journey with me. But the idea of it is it's anonymous survey, and anonymous, as we know from social media, gives people the freedom and
Yeah.
bravery to say whatever the hell they want, regardless of, the consequences. And in this
So
situation, the
the,
really
the
hard,
team's just doing this online? The
yes,
team
it's
just
all
complete the
online.
survey on, okay.
It's all online. And so they gave me the, like, here's how the veterinary leadership group gave me, like, here's the survey link, here's how you should present this. I had at my last team meeting, I said, look, it's going to be open for 2 weeks. I really want to get your feedback. I have been trying to do this. I tried to get like a suggestion box, but everybody knows everybody else's handwriting. I've tried to I've tried to ask people to talk to me, but nobody wants to hurt my feelings, and which is great, it's very nice, but it doesn't help me to improve on where I need to improve on. So this was the first time we really did an anonymous, I'm not going to know who said what. And there's, questions that are just metrics, like how likely would you be to, the net promoter score was how likely would you be to have a friend work here? Strongly agree, neutral, disagree, strongly disagree. Okay. And then why did you say what you said? Like, those are the first two questions. So it was interesting because we had a lot of people say yes. I would want people to work here. I love it here. It's great, blah, blah. But then we did have people, and it was interesting because a lot of the people who said that they would not have a friend come here is because we are such a tight knit group that it's really hard to
Interesting.
break into it. And we can be
Hmm.
kind of clicky. And I have heard this before. I have heard my clinic be referred to as a gang or like a cult. Like, once you're in, you're in. Like, they don't know that we all have matching tattoos. No, I'm kidding. But it's interesting because I've had people who have applied here and they have said, well, I was told that, once I'm into DVC, I'm in. And it really is that way, which I don't I guess I'm going to find out how healthy that is or not. But it's interesting because it is really hard for some people to fit in to our team. It's hard. We're not a very introverted group, whereas a lot of veterinary professionals are. We're very loud. Because we do mixed animal and emergency medicine, it's really fast. We're very busy, like we're booking out 2 months in advance, plus the emergencies that we see. So it's a really
Yeah.
fast-paced environment. It is not for everybody, and that's okay. But I just found it interesting that that was one of the reasons why um, they wouldn't ask one of their friends to come in, because I think they think we like beat them up, but we're not mean. But it's hard. And then they asked other questions about, like, do you feel like your bosses care about you? And that got a really high score, which made me feel very good. But there were a lot of things in there that, things that I don't think I didn't like. I expected them to say what they said. I'm not great at holding people accountable. I know that. Like that's the hardest thing. It's always been the hardest thing, because I don't like to be micromanaged, and I don't like to micromanage people, and I feel like sometimes a level of accountability is that. So like they didn't say anything that I didn't expect, but I was very impressed. We had 21 of our 22 people do it, which shows that they're engaged, so that in and of itself
Mm.
is a good thing. But now, Beth, you said you've done this before. What was your
Hmm.
experience with it?
So we've done a couple different iterations of this. So a few years ago, shortly after we put like our mid-level leadership team in place, like we've done it a bunch of times over the years, but the most recent time was probably about 2 years ago now. And I just made my own. I just did like one of the like Survey Monkey things or whatever that's anonymous. And it was a similar rubric. Like it was kind of asking like open-ended questions, like some scaled questions of like 1 to 5, one being good, five being bad, on like how do you feel like our practice is doing, and like kind of trying to get feedback from them on different parameters of like how the team works together, how the leadership is doing, if they
Got it.
feel supported, if they feel like we care, what are things that they feel are going really well, what are things that they feel could use improvement, and then asking for suggestions on that, like trying to keep it positive focused and solution oriented instead of just complaining. It was really interesting. You do kind of have to have thick skin when you look at it. I felt like when I looked at ours, I'm trying to like dig back in my memories because it's been a few years, but I feel like it was generally positive, and a couple good suggestions came out of it, and it was helpful, and it helped the team feel like they had a voice. More recently, we actually did one last year with Phil, with the PERMA mental health survey, where it was like the first. So I've done surveys that are sort of focused
Nice.
on like how is the practice doing, how is the team doing, how is the leadership doing, like more like management practice oriented. And then the PERMA one with Phil was a little bit more like individual mental health. How do you feel like you're doing, which does spill over into like how does the team work together, because it talks a lot about like psychological safety and being able to work together and feeling respected by your peers and all that good stuff. And that one was really interesting because we scored really well on it in general, but like my team, we found out is really, really hard on themselves. Like all of their self-criticism scores were like really low. Like some of them were like concerning. And that continues to be a theme that we have now pivoted to like focus more on. So we've done we're actually working with Phil currently and doing
Good.
some like positivity and leadership training for my leaders as well as my staff in general, because I find that they're all like kind of hard on themselves. And then I think that does impact them at work. So it has been very, very helpful every time I've done anything like that. And I think giving them an outlet to feel like their voice matters helps them then continue to be committed. And then, that has all the spillover benefits of like being a hard worker, wanting to stay, lower turnover, like all that good stuff that's good for like business metrics too.
David, have you ever done
I
anything or
find it
telling in your business?
fascinating. No, I just find it fascinating. And we talk about culture, we talk about maintaining the team and investing and shaping and growing people. It's been an underlying theme, but I think for all of these, as long as I've been participating here, and which I find exciting, and that you invest that time to learn And it just hit me as like how many practices are not doing that? You just come in, you show up, you do your work, you go home, you hang out, there's some laughter, but the leaders in the practices are not paying attention. You're doing your work, we move on, we have a culture by default, and it may or may not be working. Um, but not taking the advantage of the opportunity, whether it's Perma or Dr. Nickel or one of the others, or create, like you said, create your own. How many are not doing that and are just leading by default? And I would expect of the practices I see, many are doing things like this, but there's a great divide and a number of any size of practice that not don't give this any thought. And maybe because they're too busy. Like
Mhm.
Peter talks about setting aside time to work on the business instead of always in it.
Mhm.
The follow-up question I had, it sounds like both of you, especially in working with Phil or Oliver, I think you said, you're getting some outside because you're coming at it from a lens of being in it as well and being the leader, getting that feedback from somebody that doesn't know you, doesn't know the personalities, doesn't know the practice. Are you starting to get that now, Jenny? Or is that where
Yeah,
you're going next?
that's my next step. So I just got the results last night and I have a
Oh,
meeting with Oliver
fresh.
next week. Yeah, real fresh. That's why I was like, ooh, I know what I want to talk about. And it is, I think it is interesting because right, know the personalities and I make excuses, right? Like, this is why it is this way. This is why we do this. This is why we do this. And I know what I do and what I think, but that's my bias, right? And so I try to think of it
Right.
from how do my team members take Simon and I as leaders? How do my team members see, they come at it from an employee standpoint? And it's hard to wrap your head around that when you are the owner, the boss, the leader, and you're so entrenched in it. It is. So I'm really excited actually, because of course, of all of the and there were so many positive comments. The only two that are sticking with me are the negative ones that really call me out on not doing a good job. And I'm like, damn it, and that's what's going to stick in my head because, right, we do it. You have 50 clients that you make happy. That one that just ripped you a new one, that's who you take home with you. And it's just, oh, it's so frustrating because I tell my team over and over again, like, you can't let that happen. You have to
But
push that aside.
negative sticks hurts
It
more than the
and it does.
positive. And I
It
think we're
does.
also culturally attuned for right or wrong. It just is to glom onto the negative and not rewrite the narrative. Like,
Yeah.
you're accepting the narrative they're telling you as gospel of not doing a good job when you internalize it versus saying, Jenny's not doing a good job. You can say, I am doing a good job. They're just not perceiving the work that I am doing for them because they're getting a divorce and their child's sick and whatever their own land is. Like, I'm not blaming people, but we all see the world through our own lens. But if you're accepting that information as your truth. You need to come up and say, do I want to accept that as a truth? That's your choice, right? Or do I want to create a new truth with that information and decide how to go from there? And
Well,
you know what I'm
this,
saying?
yeah, this is why I think it's important to have that outside help. You know, I think because, right, I can sit there and say, well, they don't know where I'm coming from. They don't know this and make excuses for it to the point where I don't make any changes. And then they
Right.
see, well, I gave her my opinion and she didn't make any changes. And so does my opinion really matter? So I think the benefit of having a secondary person come in, and same thing with you, Beth, right? Like you love your team, right? Like these are your people. So I'm sure to sit there and do something, with Phil and see that these people are beating the crap out of themselves. Like we want to help them, but we don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
That's not my specialty, right? I don't know that I have a specialty, but I want to be the best me that I can be, and I want my team to be the best them that they can be. And sometimes, like I have one team member that has a lot of physical difficulties. She has a very rare disease. She physically cannot get down on her knees as a technician. That is very difficult. So she kind of gets mad because she gets held back by that, but that mad comes out at us because we're not allowing her to do these things. Well, you physically can't. So how do I navigate that? So that's where I think these people who are outside of it, right? They don't. Oliver, this I haven't even talked to him yet. He doesn't know who I am. I'm sure hopefully he has a great British accent, because I could listen to that all day long, right? But I mean, it's one of those things that he doesn't know who I am. I don't know who he is. He's looking at the data. We're going to talk, and I'm going to say, what are your suggestions? How do I go about, or here's what I'm doing. Does this sound good? One of the things that came up in our survey was we really don't have, Beth, you talked about the mid-level leadership. Our mid-level leadership has changed in our technician role. Like, we have a head receptionist, we have me who oversees everything. One of our head technicians left to have babies and is not coming back. Another head technician had babies and she's really not full-time yet. So her presence is not here as often. So what's got pushed to the wayside? Our tech meetings have not happened. Our doctor tech meetings have not happened. Like, that communication piece is really not happening. And the technical staff notices it. And so some of the comments they made was, it's like a free for all. It's like the Wild West out there. Everybody's doing their own thing. Like, we're still taking care of our clients. We're still taking care of our patients, but there is a lack of structure in that section of the practice. So what are we doing? Well, in my one-on-ones recently, I promoted one of my CVTs to a head CVT. So she and this other one can work together. We talked about having meetings, and all this kind of stuff. So I want to talk to Oliver. Is that a good idea? Is there other suggestions that you should have? Because I think we get so entrenched in it and we know our people, it's very easy for us to make excuses for things. And I think that's where that's like, did Phil help you with that aspect of it? Like, help you
Yeah.
step back and see the big picture?
Yeah, because like you're saying, it's so easy whenever there's negative feedback to then
Right.
either want to jump to explain if you feel like it's a perception thing and you're like, no, 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 this is wrong, and let me tell you why.
Right.
Or to then like beat yourself up that, man, I do really suck at that and I am letting my team down, like depending upon whatever the feedback is. And I think having the outsider perspective is super helpful for them to be that third non-biased party that can like talk to you about making it more solution oriented, because there are
Hmm.
times where feedback is not actionable. Like there is some feedback that we get, like for example, I have this one technician who just thinks we should only ever see 30-plus minute appointments. And it is just a personal preference. So every time we ask for feedback, she's like, we should not be doing 20-minute appointments. And we've had conversations with her where we're like, listen, like for rechecks, that's just what it is. That's how the schedule is structured. Like it's never going to change. Like you can stop giving that feedback because we're never going to change it. And we've like talked it out. And then we'll ask for feedback and there'll be an anonymous feedback that's like, we should not be doing 20-minute appointments. And every time I'm like, God, stop it with the 20-minute thing. And like, I get it that she feels strongly about it, but like, not actionable. Like, we're not going to do
We're
anything
not doing
about
that.
that. Right. So it's
Yeah.
just not where our practice is. Sorry. Um, Sorry, my little dog has something to say about that. So, that's one of those things not actionable. But then there are things that are really actionable, or things that like my knee-jerk reaction is to feel defensive. And like having another person be like, okay, but can we like unpack it? And is there useful, actionable data from that
Right.
information, even if your knee-jerk reaction is it's unfair or what have you? Like, can we dive a little further to say, like, maybe it seems really unfair, but can we get some good ideas out of it? Or can we look at their perspective and then help, pivot what we're doing or how we're doing something to make it better for the team, and then, get something positive out of it. So that has been super helpful. I think Phil and other people who run surveys like that, that's what their focus helps you be on, like, what can you take from it? What changes can you make that can be beneficial to your practice? And we've like changed, the way we flow appointments with some feedback. We've changed how we schedule appointments. We've created structures on identifying what's an emergency to help our front desk know how to schedule those. Like we've gotten a lot of really good feedback from our
Nice.
team that then we've been able to use, from some of these surveys. The other thing I want to just mention really quick too, I'm sure probably you guys are familiar with a lean board. I don't know if any of you have ever used that. Okay, so there is a lean board, and I'm probably going to botch the history on this, but I feel like it's from like Toyota or one of the big manufacturers
Companies,
of
yeah.
automobiles. And what it is it's a board that breaks it down into like if you identify a problem in the practice or wherever, you identify the problem and you have to identify a proposed solution. And so we have this, like it's a physical board called a lean board. And so if anyone identifies something in the practice that they think we could make better or a process that we could improve upon, they can identify the problem, but there has to be a solution. And this has been really helpful
Solution.
because it does combat some of the mindless complaining because it has to be that there's a solution. So, like for example, we just talked about some lean board suggestions yesterday. So one of them was on the days that our kennel is really full and we have a lot of animals and there's some employee pets and there's not enough cage space, what can we do to help manage where to put those animals? And then, like, one of the proposed solutions was using some of the office spaces or having like a more structured sign up so, like, less employee pets can come on those days if we identify them ahead of time. So it's like taking minor problems that like maybe to you or I, we'd be like, it's not really an issue, but it's like the stuff that really bothers the team.
Right.
And then it's giving them an outlet to say, hey, this is how we could fix it. And then we talk about those at the staff meeting every time. Anytime someone is brave enough to put a lean board suggestion, we always talk about it. We always thank them and we talk it out, whether it is something we can feasibly do or not. And I feel like that has also been, as far as feedback goes, like a really amazing implementation that gives them a voice, but also pivots it to be solution oriented.
Where do you have this in your
I like
practice?
that. You can vent yes and
Yes.
what's the solution? What's the options? And so it's not just a vocalization, it's and what are we going to do about it? I like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Well, it
So
gives
we
them
have,
ownership too. You
yes.
just
Yeah.
can't be crabby about something and blame, 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 blame.
Yeah.
You can get it out of your system, but then you're saying, now we're empowering you to control where you're going, right? And I'm guessing,
And being heard.
and being
Yeah.
heard, I'm guessing not all suggestions are implemented, but they're a starting point to a greater solution, right?
Hmm.
Like it's allowing the discussion to be opened up to
Yep.
get to the final destination. Is that what I'm hearing correctly?
Yes, yes. So if there's been times where like the proposed solution is not feasible. But then we'll go back to the person and talk to them. And then we have sometimes used that to open a discussion, like with the doctor team or the CSR team or the nursing team, of like, okay, this problem was identified, this solution was proposed, but here are some hurdles to that. And then does anyone have any other ideas or suggestions? And then that opens the door and then we'll have a conversation. And that has led to some really, really great ideas. I mean, our lean board has definitely helped the practice so much because there have been many suggestions of things that like I've never thought about. One of my absolute favorite ones was we used to, whenever an animal was put to sleep, we do sympathy cards. And in the beginning, when there was like way less of us, we would have the sympathy card sit at the front desk and everybody would sign it. And it's like really nice in theory and really nice for those clients. But oh my God, getting compliance on that, getting the entire
I
team to
know.
sign it, what a freaking nightmare. And then it would sit up there and the poor CSRs would be like, can you sign this? It only has a couple signatures. Like, we can't send it like this, but it's been here for almost a week. And it was like such a stupid problem. And one of them was like, on the lean board, instead of doing that, can just the doctor who put the animal to sleep sign it and then put and the team of Penridge Animal Hospital? And then that way it's still personalized. There can be a note, but it is one person who is probably the person who's most likely to want to sign it anyway. And then that's it. It can go out in the mail. And
Yeah.
we were all literally like, why did we never think of that? And we have these cards sitting at the desk for like 2 weeks. Like it was such a one of those things that I'm like, oh my God, I literally never thought of that solution. But what a fantastic solution for such a like silly little
Yeah.
problem. Like an important thing, but like
Yeah.
something that was like little, you
Right.
know? So stuff like that, it has been super helpful for.
Where do you have
That's
this in
cool.
practice that everybody can access it?
Yeah, so I can probably send you guys a picture, but our practice is on 2 floors. So there's a main set of stairs that goes down into our treatment room that everyone traverses every day, even the CSRs. So at the bottom of those stairs, we have like a big board that has any upcoming events and like we do kudos and stuff on that board. And then right next to it is our big lean board. So everyone walks by it every day. And then there's cards right there that hang that they just have to pull a card out and it has little prompts to fill it out. And then they hang it on the lean board. And then one of my nursing team leads is the one who's responsible for keeping an eye on the lean board, pulling any new suggestions off, bringing it to the leadership team, and then starting the process of, seeing if that's something we could implement or not.
I love that.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Between that and where we started the survey, I mean, pretty neat ideas. The question that I have for both of you on the surveys that you did you share the results with the team, or did
Mm.
you just kind of take this element and that element and bring it out? Or was it just kept, or are you planning, in your case, Jenny, is it just kept within the leadership?
Well, my plan is so I got the results last night, stewed on them because that's what I do. Changed my outlook a little bit and then had a conversation with my husband this morning because I know him and he takes, like, if I take it personally, he takes it 200 times more personal, you know? And so he gets very, so I was like, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're not going to focus on the negative. And he's like, okay. So we had that conversation, but then I think I probably will not give my team all of the individual responses
Right.
because what I know will happen, even if they don't mean to, is they're going to be like, who said what? And it's going to become a witch hunt. And that's not what I want. I don't want people being like, oh, well, I bet it's her that's not happy about the schedule, or I bet it's, like, I don't
Right.
want that. And that's what I have this feeling will happen. And so what they suggested was like, we have their meeting and then we come up with bullet points. Here are the key things that came out of our survey. So, right, number one, Jenny doesn't hold people accountable. Here's the action that Jenny's going to start doing to help with that. Number two, the technical team doesn't have enough communication. Here are the steps that we're going to do to help with that. So I think it's going to be a more generalized thing. And then my goal is to try
Right.
and follow
That
it
makes
up.
sense.
Right. My goal is to try and follow it up with more of these more often, whether it be twice a year, quarterly. I've started trying to do one-on-ones quarterly because I was horrible at that, but I want to make sure that people are sitting down with me and having a conversation and stuff like that. So yeah, that's my goal. Is that, Beth, is that how you handled it, or what have you done?
Yeah, we shared like summarized data. So we didn't share individual responses because I didn't want the same thing as anyone to be like, I think this person said that and they're a jerk. So we just did sort of like the gist of it, and then we highlighted either areas where we're like, we all agree we're doing really well, or there was a bunch of feedback of this is maybe an area that we could improve, and then use that to talk about what could we do differently. And like with the PERMA one, when we identified that everyone's self-criticism is really high, then Phil did a couple workshops with the team where that was our focus. So we shared the data from that, and then he came in and did these workshops targeted to the team where we focused on how to work on that to make the team improve themselves in that area so that they felt better. So yeah, kind of like summarized data. was good.
I think that knowing my
That's
team,
awesome.
they're so loyal, and they would literally do a witch hunt for any negative, like,
Yeah,
and it's like, no, no,
but
no.
you
The
know
point of
that
this is to be anonymous.
if
Yeah.
you know that's a possibility, then you can reformat the information to make that a non-existent possibility,
Right.
right? And it's just each team's different, each person's different. It's like raising kids, you know? You kind of know how they work, so then you kind of do different behaviors to work with each kid to bring out the positive and mitigate the negative, right? It sounds like you're going to do the same thing. And Beth, you did the same thing. Like, because you guys know your teams and you know this
Mhm.
is supposed to be a positive,
Right.
not a bashing session, right? Like, that's not
Mhm.
your goal of going into this. And
Right.
so I think planning ahead and how to use the information to leverage where you want to go the most sounds pretty cool, you know?
And I think that's a big thing too, with regards to, like, so if someone listening to this decides to do this, which I'm really going to highly recommend, because we've talked about it before. Everybody just wants to be heard. Everybody just wants
Mhm.
to matter. And this is giving your team that opportunity to feel like a team, not a staff member, but a team member, and what I say matters. And so I think it's really important, but it is going to be critical. And I did it. I started thinking, who said what? And I'm like, Jenny, like mentally slapping myself, like, don't do that, even though I'm pretty sure I know who said what. But like, I can't come into work and be like, suspiciously eyeing people and being like, you're the one who, said this. You can't do it. So I think if you, as an owner, a leader, a manager, decide to do something like this, you can't take it personally. You can't, don't ask a question if you're not ready to hear the answer, is really what it is. And so you better be ready to hear the answer, but focus it, like what Beth said, really you've got to figure out how to turn it into a positive. Okay, I can't fix a problem if I don't know it's there. Think about our patients that we see when they come in and they're just an ADR, right? Like they're just not right. And the steps that you have to go through to figure out, okay, we've done the blood work. Well, the blood work's normal. So now what? Well, he was a little tender in his abdomen, so maybe we throw the ultrasound on him. Okay, well, that, like, what are the steps that we're going to go through to finally diagnose this problem? Well, here you're being told this is the problem. You don't have an animal that can't speak to you. Your team is telling you this is the problem. So you've already gotten all the diagnostics done. Now it's what
Now let's look
medication, what's the treatment?
forward.
Mhm.
Yes. So I think you have to set your brain to that. Yes, I'm going to get some negative feedback, but right, like Kelly said, you're going to flip the switch, right? Like, how do we turn this into making us better? And
Mhm.
getting the team in on that. Like, okay, you guys told me, I'm hearing you. Here's what we're going to do, and getting them involved. And I just think that it's a huge opportunity I'm really excited to see how this goes. I mean, I did take it personally
Hard
because
not to.
I'm
At
a human, right? And I
least a
take
little.
so much pride in what I do.
Yeah.
And I'm like I said, one of the questions was, do you feel like your manager that like cares about you as a person? And everyone answered strongly agree or agree. And I'm like, they better, because if they don't, I'm gonna be so mad. I'm like, I buy them whatever snacks they want, so I think that we do tend to take things very personally. And so it is, but as an owner, as a manager, you have to be brave, and you have to you already have taken these positions of leadership that shows that you have courage. So now take it one step further and be ready to hear some things that might be hard, but flip it around and say, okay, how are we going to do this better? I think that
Mhm.
that's I really I'm excited. Maybe we can have
Yeah.
another talk about this in six
Yeah,
months after
there's
that one.
Yeah.
actually that's a good wrap
I
because we're
was going to
giving everyone their
say, yeah,
marching orders to go
Yes.
out. And
yeah.
if you have not done this, make it a priority for your practice, whether you're a leader, a future owner, a current owner, manager.
Mhm.
This is a great team activity. I'm just blown away by what you two have mentioned in that. Very cool.
Yeah,
What
so
an opportunity to
thank
learn.
you for
Yep.
sharing today. As my phone goes off, thank you for sharing today.
Unfiltered.
Unfiltered, right. So we're going to leave it there. So until next time, the Royal Wave, thank you all for listening. Again, you can find us on Unfiltered Vet Discussions. And have a great day.